We were talking on the way up here today, and we were saying how sort of maybe 6 months ago I'd completely trust the BBC, and now this has all come out, and the lying and the deceit. I'm completely shocked, and if they've deceived us in this way, how do they deceive us in other ways, and all the news that we watch?
I find it hard to believe anything now that they say.
I think the BBC's credibility is completely destroyed. There's 50% of people now who are definitely voting yes, and one of the reasons that they're voting yes is because they know they've been lied to by the BBC, and they no longer have trust in the BBC. And for the BBC as an institution, which has been shown to be protecting paedophiles like Savile, has been shown to protect other vested interests, this is the final straw for a lot of people.
Started to become aware of it with the interviews. It'll be the actual presenters on the BBC and the way they speak to people that are supporting independence. They wanted to keep talking about independence and say positive things, and the BBC presenter just cut them, and you're kind of like, oh, this is really frustrating. And I also find that the BBC presenters don't give the unionists a difficult time. They won't ask probing questions, but when it's somebody like Alex Salmond talking about question after question after question,
keep trying to slip them up,
and they just give them a really easy time. It's just so obvious.
I felt that basically they've been extremely biased in their coverage, backing up what the University of the West of Scotland discovered, that their coverage is 3-2 in favour of the No campaign. But more importantly, they've actually been editing out a lot of information which people are entitled to receive, which has been kept from the public, which I think is absolutely disgraceful for a public corporation.
And when there's a big breakthrough in the Yes campaign, you never see it advertised in the papers or on the BBC, but whenever there's only a slight lie told by the Better Together campaign, they're all over it, and it's on the news, on the headlines.
You have a situation where Danny Alexander is jetted in, and he actually presents to the Scottish media, including the BBC, and he based it on two leading academics' figures, which he and the British government distorted. If that had been a case of Alex Salmond or the Yes campaign putting forward their proposals, and by distorting and lying about figures taken from an academic and from two academics' papers, that they would have been held to pay, and the BBC would have been leading the attack. As it has been, the whole debate on that has been dropped after less than 24 hours. Therefore, we have the British state showing, in concert with the BBC, that they're trying to suffocate the democratic debate.
The pensions are secure. Things, you know, the pound will keep the pound, and just so misleading. And I think for people that don't read outside the controlled media, they will believe that.
The BBC allows people like Alistair Darling to continually repeat recycled lies. For instance, about their pension. If you take older people who don't use social media, who rely on the newspapers, who are universally in favour of the union, they rely on these two sources for their information. And the BBC has still got an image in a lot of older people's minds that they are beyond reproach.
The way that even in the newspapers you get a different story in an English newspaper to a Scottish newspaper, I think that's terrible.
I mean, even if you compare the Putin campaign, where Alex Salmond was quoted out of context, that went on for over a week with some leading BBC correspondents like Glenn Campbell trying to make a huge issue out of it. And the BBC also made a big issue about Alex Neil's performance in regard to an email as Health Secretary on the eve of the European elections, which I thought was totally against their charter, because irrespective of the fact it's a domestic issue, it had an impact on the European election campaign, must have done, and only a simpleton would see otherwise.
To be honest, when I first I thought, well, no, I want to stay part of the UK. All my family's from England, they all live there. But then I started looking into the facts and the figures and doing my research on it out of the media, and just thought, well, why wouldn't you? You know, and I've looked into it a lot because I don't want to be making a vote that affects my family and friends down south. and it doesn't at all. It's better for them as well.
If the media was fair and honest, then I think independence would be a walkover.
Oh, absolutely.
We'd win it.
Everyone would be backing it, and we'd be doing it already.
My children are obviously Scottish and they're born here. And I just think, see,
you're voting for them,
aren't you? I'm voting for them. It's a lot of people sort of say, look at their own situation now and go, I'm all right, I've got a nice car, I've got a nice house, I'm fine. And you're kind of thinking, no, you've got to think further than this. You've got to think about your children, your grandchildren. Things are probably okay at the moment, but you know, when all these cuts come in, it'll be better. But what happens when all these cuts come in?
And then
NHS
gets privatised.
NHS goes. What about tuition fees? My children won't be able to afford to go to university. Who's going to afford to go? The rich. This is what this is. We're fighting against this elite power, the rich,
That's it.
and they're the ones that obviously control the media, which is why we can't get our message out.
Although there's probably 300 people here, and it's just a day's notice, and I'm really impressed, and I think there'll be more. Next time there'll be more and more, and the Scottish people have forgotten how to demonstrate properly, peacefully, in any numbers, but they're learning now to come out and show their defiance against the lies and the distortions they've had to put up with.
We're voting for the future of our friends, our family and our children, our grandchildren.